Welcome back to the Panzer Museum in Munster, and we're touring the Kanonenjagdpanzer. As you can see, I'm standing in the loader's hatch. A fairly simple system. It is a single piece swing forward, nicely cushioned. Just grab the strap, release the safety lock, and pull, away you go. Of course, the strap is half broken. Now you'll see that it's sort of a spaced armor effect, and I'm not sure if that's absolutely necessary, but if nothing else, at least it makes it flush with the skate ring. The skate ring, of course, is upon which you will find the MG3 in the pintle mount, and it's quickly detachable. You can remove the MG3 from the loader's hatch and put it onto the commander's skate ring if you so desire. Not much to be said about the outside of the loader's hatch, so let's go inside the vehicle. Well, as you saw when I came in to close the hatch, it is a rotating system. It puts 3 lugs out and it holds it very securely in place. Now, frankly, I think it's a bit overkill. I'm not sure why you need it that secure. I mean, perhaps they're thinking nuclear overpressure or something, but I would prefer a simple old-fashioned lever that if it looks like it gets stuck, I just take something and I batter it and it comes loose. That's just me, perhaps. Anyway, so well padded. I got padding here. Look at this genius thing. They've put a handle on the rotating periscope. On all the other vehicles I've been in, I don't recall a single one having a handle. How hard is it to have a handle? It just makes it so much easier than trying to force it around. This is pretty much the only thing he gets to look out of. As I'm sitting back, just looking at the vehicle, it is amazing what maybe 2 decades of technology and a little bit of experience will do. I'm filming this after having filmed the Jagdpanzer IV, and it's the same concept of a vehicle. It's a big gun up front in a casemate, and this is so much better laid out. I can reach everything. I have lots of room. I'm in a very comfortable seat. I'm facing, by the way, I'm facing to the right. The front is to my left, if you haven't figured this out. I can access everything I need to access, such as the 51 rounds of ammunition. So there are 2 rounds in a sort of emergency rack to the left. There are 3 rounds stowed under the gunner's platform, and everything else is in here. Now the racks have been removed and they've replaced it with stuff. But getting the ammunition from everywhere except under the commander's seat into the breech, I don't even need to get off my seat. I mean, the last vehicle I was able to do this in was an M4. It's so wonderful to be able to do this. And you go, of course, right-handed loading. The breech operating handle will be on the top. Of course, this seems to be missing from the vehicle. It's one of those hazards with Musea, unfortunately. Directly opposite me is the escape hatch on, of course, the floor of the vehicle. And there is actually a rather important reason for it to be there in addition to getting out under fire, because you can always bail out quickly. But if you're in a rollover, and literally the vehicle is upside down, that's your way out. And vehicles that don't have a belly hatch, you might be in some trouble. Anyway, ammunition, as I say, 51 rounds. The manual, which they happen to have left in here, indicates heat and HET are your primary forms of ammunition. Now, my suspicion is this is a late manual, by which point the 90mm AP rounds that were originally issued probably were not of any use whatsoever. So it would have simply discarded them, but the gun would fire the full range of M47 ammunition. What they do have here, though, because they're using it for stuff, is, for example, one of those rubber track blocks that I had mentioned can be removed from, either it's just worn out or you want to put the snow grazer on. And you can see how it's held in place by this little lip or tongue here. They have to kind of push in and pry out to get the pad to be removed. That's pretty much it. I will observe that the loader's backrest will fold down, so you can stand up and lord it over the world as you go by, except unless you go by a tank, in which case they're still lording it over you. And, well, I mean, you'd have to be pretty short to need it though, because from the floor to the ceiling, I haven't measured it, but I'll be surprised if it's much over 5 foot. But you don't need more. Because I don't have to stand up to do the loading process, I can be quite comfortably seated while I kill the enemies of my country. The last item I will note here, and this is your standard electrical equipment and storage on any vehicle, is the, well, pretty much standard NATO illumination system light. It comes with your white light for normal use, and if you're going to be fighting at night, you got a red light as an option. Can't really complain about that either. So, right, I have to say I'm very happy with this position. Go Germany. Let's move forward to the driver. Driver's position, well, getting in was a little bit complicated because of the auxiliary steering levers. As I'm trying to slide in, of course, these things are in the way. Now, he does, of course, have his own hatch. It's a flip-over type, so he can just come straight down and forward, and hopefully it's not going to be much of an issue, assuming that the steering wheel doesn't get in the way, because that's something you wouldn't ordinarily expect to see. But steering wheel he has. So combine that, presumably, in normal operation, and when things go wrong, your two tillers, the one on the left being very, very close to my leg, I have to say. And I do note the plungers, so obviously the tillers do seem to perform the handbrake function as well. The gearbox appears to be a transfer case, and the reason I have come to this conclusion is on the left-hand side we see 1, 2, and 3, which is presumably the position of this little lever here. And on the far side is V and R, which, okay, guess what? Forwards, neutral, and reverse. And instead of a clutch pedal, there's just a little push button for your left foot. Other things, well, he has a monster of a dash here. All the circuit breakers on the back, and then you got your readouts and then selector switches further forward. Only 930 kilometers on this clock, so this is maybe a developmental vehicle or not a full production. There is a builder's plate on the left here, but the Fahrgestell number is empty, implying that this is not perhaps a full production vehicle. Interestingly, it also says Gearbox, so I'm wondering if this wasn't a vehicle that was turned into an artillery spotter and then converted back later. To his right would be found the coaxial machine gun, so that's one more thing for him to deal with in the course of a battle. It is the MG3 again on a German vehicle, or if it is a Belgian vehicle, the FN MAG, which we're familiar with in American circles as the M240. Fantastic gun. I'm a little bit unusual in American tank commander circles. I prefer the 240 to the caliber 50, but well, perhaps I am just a little bit weird. Vision out. Well, he's got 3 perfectly serviceable periscopes, and they'll show you what he needs to see when buttoned up. The seat is fully adjustable in height, and unfortunately not forward and backwards. So in low threat environments, flip open the hatch, raise the seat, easy as. That's pretty much it for the driver's position, and well, let's hop over the other side of the gun. The gunner, of course, is to the front right of the vehicle, and life is generally good for him. I am seated in a nice, comfortable, padded seat with a backrest, and my legs are absolutely straight. I can even see where we're going out the use of this, again, rotating and adjustable periscope. It's not a sight, it's just for general observation, but it can be used when ambushing, that you can observe your target without exposing the entire vehicle. So finally, the Germans have figured out that a combination of the roof sight and the coaxial sight is a good thing. Now, I will caveat there is a piece which I'll get back to, which is missing, which would probably interfere with my legs a little bit. But generally speaking, though, this is comfortable. Speaking of, there's so much empty space in here. I mean, you almost wonder if this is just inefficient. But I will wager that at night you would sleep in the vehicle. There is probably room to set up at least 3 cots in here, maybe a 4th if you want to be cozy. So while it's lashing rain outside, you just close up the hatches, hope the seals work, and yeah, life is good for a Kanonenjagdpanzer crewman. Right, sights. You will see it is over on the left here. And you'll also see that there is a blind on the right eyepiece. You can't see anything through this. And this is because a lot of people don't realize this. When you're shooting, you shoot with both eyes open. You don't close one eye and aim at the other, as a lot of people will do. If you're doing that, you're probably using the wrong eye. And just because you're right-handed doesn't mean that you're right-eyed. So if you're curious how to test, what you do is you make a little triangle. You have somebody stand maybe 10 feet away from you and you hold it up. And whichever eye is visible through this little hole, he tells you, I can see your right eye. You're right eye dominant. So you aim with your right eye, ideally. You will note here, though, that the eyepiece, the blind, is fixed on the right. So whilst it is possible to move the brow pad around a bit, the blind is stuck there. So it looks like left eye dominant is the way to do this. Now, the downside with the gunner's position, and he even gets his own reading light, by the way, just driving around. No hatch, though. He's got to get out. Got to get out probably the loaders as easiest. The downside, as I was saying, with the gunner's position is when he is actually servicing targets. And sadly, it is not as easy because, as you can see, as I'm sitting on this seat, you would expect the gun sight to be up here, and of course it isn't. So it looks like you have to get off your seat and kneel down or sit on the floor, probably kneel, next to the gun. So let's move the camera and we'll have a look at it. Using the gun's full range of traverse and elevation, that's 15 degrees each side, 15 up and 8 down, is a little inconvenient for the gunner because this is not an articulated scope. It basically does whatever the gun does. So the travel position, I've obviously leveled the gun out, I've removed the travel lock. With the gun more or less at max elevation is such that in order to see the sight, you got to get off the seat and basically sit on the whole floor or kneel on the whole floor. Similarly, if I was to traverse all the way to the right, that means I'll probably fall off the edge, the left-hand edge of the seat, and I'll be squatting as well. So the sight itself, if you were to look through and see the reticle, it would be pretty much instantly familiar to a modern tanker with the backup range setting and the mil dot dash system. It's hard to describe, but you'll recognize it if you see it. The ammunition fired by the Rheinmetall 90mm 40.4 caliber gun is basically that of the M47, as I already mentioned, but again, AP rounds not usually fired. The Belgians had an improved fire control system made by Sabca, very similar to the one in the Leopard 1s. So what they had was a laser rangefinder and an integrated ballistic computer. Life was a lot easier for a Belgian gunner than a German one. To elevate and depress, well, elevation is a very simple hand screw. You can see the screw here, and as you rotate, by definition, screws up and down. There is a trigger on the handle. Missing from the vehicle is the traverse, which again is another screw. It's not a toothed arc or anything fancy like that. It's another screw. It will go here and it would push against this mounting point here and swivel right here on this pivot point. And that's it. It's an incredibly simple system. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, the Belgians also have an improved fire control system for night firing. It's a better image intensifier that they use in conjunction with the Lyra flare launchers, as opposed to the active searchlight. I'm sure that gets quicker with practice. All right, let's go back. The last man of the four-man crew is, of course, the commander at the back right of the vehicle and commandy sort of position. He's got a fantastic view of what everybody inside the vehicle is up to. He's a little bit detached. I mean, the nearest crewman is nearly 2 meters away, which is rather a luxury in terms of armored fighting vehicle design, and he's got all the legroom in the world. He has 8 periscopes scattered around him so he can see the world about. And they provide acceptable vision. I mean, I've certainly seen worse in almost everything except a modern vehicle. The seat I'm on is very clever, kind of folds 3 different ways. It's easily adjustable in height, just by use of this little lever here. Works fantastically. The backrest will kind of fold forward and the entire seat will fold up out of the way so that I can stand on the platform and stick my head at the top. Commander's primary optic, well, that's his periscope here. It's a little bit offset to the right, so although the indicator is saying it's at 12 o'clock, I'm facing maybe the 2 o'clock to do it. Now, if I try to immediately just come down to the side, I'm gonna bash my head on these things pretty quickly. So hence come back to the easily adjustable seat, which will drop me down. And I am now going to place my feet on the escape hatch. I can look forward and I can very comfortably use the sight without destroying my head. Now, according to the book I read, the sight is a selectable magnification between by 6 to by 20. Damn if I can't find the lever that does that. What I have found is this, which I presume rotates it around for scanning. This appears to be a focus. There is a filter on the right, and there is a ranging system. So what these two levers, or knobs better, will do is there is, when you look through the periscope, there is a little box that as you adjust the two levers, you adjust the size of the box. And the readouts here, I presume, are in mils. So once you have framed your target, you see how big the target is in mils, do a quick bit of calculation, and that way you know pretty well how far away your target is. Now, German vehicles, once a target has been identified and ranged, it is down to the commander yelling instructions at the driver and gunner. In a Belgian vehicle, they have what I believe was termed an azimuth deviation indicator, which basically was a little readout for the driver and the gunner that showed which way the periscope was facing, and the driver would turn the vehicle so that the needle would be more or less forward, and that way the gunner was on site and the commander didn't have to do anything. Other things, well, now that I'm down here, I can see the shrouds for the torsion bars going all the way across the vehicle. Radio on the right would be mounted here together with this. I do note they've even left, look at this, this is basically a functional vehicle. They've left the headset and throat mic. For communicating with the outside world, you can select, I presume, with this toggle here, if you're on intercom, if you're on the telephone on the back, if you're on the radio, what have you, or even which frequency on the radio perhaps. I'm not entirely familiar with the radio system. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So the seat will fold up out of the way as soon as they get off it. The hatch is the swing over type, so it can go up to an umbrella position, open protected, and then you simply spin it around and it locks in place. So it does take a little bit of getting used to. There's like 4 different levers you have to pull to get this thing to work. There is an unlock lever, which will raise it up maybe an inch. Then you got to spin it around by releasing the locking lever, and that'll hold it in place. Okay, so three different controls, just open the hatch, but it can be done fairly quickly. Right, well, that's it. I'll get out and close up. In total, 750 vehicles were manufactured by the 2 manufacturers, each building half. They were delivered between 1965 and 1967. However, it was determined that the vehicles were of limited utility against the T-64s and T-72s that started being deployed in numbers by the Warsaw Pact, so by 1983 they started being withdrawn from service, although reserve units did keep some on strength until 1990. 162 of the vehicles were taken in for conversion into the Jaguar II anti-tank missile vehicle, and a number more were simply taken in to have the gun removed and turned into an artillery observation vehicle. The Belgians, well, they received their 80 JPK-90s in about 1975. They were issued on the basis of 2 4-tank platoons for each of 8 infantry battalions. They hung around until the end of the Cold War. Now, there was some consideration being given to upgunning the Kanonenjagdpanzers with a 105 or maybe a 120, but it was deemed that it really just wasn't worth the effort, and perhaps missiles were the way forward anyway. So that brings us to the end of the story of the KJP and the end of the tour. As ever, hope you found it interesting and informative. I'll see you on the next one. Okay. Took a while to get here. Hello? That's annoying. This is awesome. They left the manual in here. So maybe I can figure out a couple of the outstanding and burning questions, which, granted, going into the wiring diagram is probably a little bit excessive. But I am trying to figure out what is supposed to go here, so perhaps there will be a diagram that will help me. We'll soon find out. All right. The gearbox, it appears to be a transfer case because this is apparently 1, 2, and 3, whilst this one goes forwards, neutral, and reverse. Son of a... push up and then rotate left. So now let's see how long it takes me to do this. Prepare to laugh.